Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Thursday, 10:54 a.m. California time. March 13th, 2025 is the date. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D Globe shows a 1.7 earthquake. Also, a bunch of movement up here across Iceland. I know it's not showing it too much there on the Earthquake 3D Globe, but they are having a decent swarm down here just around the Reykjanes Peninsula, south of the Grindavik area. Of course, this is where all the volcanic activity has been confined to recently in the past year. Just to the northeast, this earthquake swarm, goodness, it's a hefty one. Got about 508 earthquakes in the last 24 hours around this region. Now, this, of course, is the rift boundary out here. That ultimately should give enough boost here to the Svartsengi area to produce another eruption. It's been ongoing here as far as built-up pressure goes in the area since last November, right? If I remember right. Looking at 4 months here of built-up inflation. Here's the Grindavik area inflation chart on the bottom. Couple periods of blackout data, but we've been consistently going up. And if you look here on their site, this is just another chart here showing you how far we've come since the eruption there. In the pause in the eruption back in November. So we're going up. Going up and up and up. Here's a red line. We're up at this maximum level here. In fact, we're at a level not seen since the start of the eruption, which was back in 2000. I think it was at the end of 2023, beginning of 2024. A couple areas up here that built up quite a bit of volume. This is the volume chart. Obviously, we're way up here, above a lot of previous levels seen during this, 13, 14 months of, actually been longer than that, of periodic eruptions and whatnot. So looking at potential here of seeing something a little bit more drastic looking when the eruption does take place. Now, I don't know if we're going to see an eruption return across the craters area, which is northeast of Grindavik. Here's a map right here. I'll show you guys real quick. See the former lava flows here, and there was even some throughout the last 15 months or so. One that dropped down here into the Grindavik area, but this is the most recent one in the outline right there. Most of the fissures have been confined right here across this area, and as I mentioned, a little bit south here as well. Some previous fissure events opening up, but the earthquake activity in general has taken place just offshore. Again, to the southwest of the Grindavik and the Svartsengi area, Blue Lagoon, and the power plant up here. But almost every time we see some type of earthquake swarm like that, it almost immediately follows with an eruption out here across this region. So we got to watch that pretty closely. 500 earthquakes in the last 24 hours. That's a huge swarm. Far as any earthquake activity directly underneath the Svartsengi or the craters area, where the most recent fissure activity is going on, or had gone on, just a handful of earthquakes. Blue Lagoon over here, and we'll watch that and see how this stirs up. Either way, I don't think it's going to be long before we see a return to the eruption there across Iceland. As far as the latest data goes, let me go back here a little bit and see if they have any new articles. This was put out from yesterday. There is one new one today. I'll pull this back up. These guys are mentioning up to 600 earthquakes detected so far. Main seismic swarms occurred in the area. Many seismic swarms occurred in the area since 2021. But like I said, almost always immediately following these swarms, we'll see the return to an eruption there across the northeast of Grindavik. The activity may continue with intermittent behavior. No clear evidence of deformation in that area specifically, but as I showed you there on the graphs, things have been going up and up and up there across the Grindavik area. That's a deflation, but in this case, inflation chart here, up vertical displacement right there. The swarm was most intense at the beginning when about 50 to 60 earthquakes were recorded in the first few hours. That's crazy. The behavior of the swarm so far shows that the activity can decrease and then suddenly increase again. Since 2003, 5 earthquake swarms have occurred in the same area where the activity is now. And of course, see how this plays out. On their previous article here, they're expecting that this next eruption here, let's see, considering the increasing seismic activity alongside continued land uplift and magma accumulation, the most likely scenario is that this period of magma accumulation will result in a dike intrusion towards the crater row, where most of the eruption has taken place. It is likely that this will result in a volcanic eruption, marking the 8th eruption since the end of 2023, back when it started there. But again, we're at a volume of level not seen since then. So, of course, more volume of magma below the surface results in a more spectacular type of eruption when it does take place. That's a given. And they mention it right here. The next eruption could be larger than the previous ones. You know, all these little leading up to, you know, about 20 or 18 or so in terms of the volume of magma, pretty spectacular. But when you get, you know, almost double the volume of that, of course it's going to be, you know, a pretty decent view once it does decide to pop up here. We just got to watch these earthquake swarms and see where exactly it's going to happen at. 3 months have passed since the most recent eruption concluded, lasting 18 days and ending on December 8th. Okay, this is the longest period of magma accumulation that has been observed during this eruptive series, with today marking the 111 days since the last eruption. Here's the important part right here. The volume of magma that has accumulated beneath the Sarvartsingi during this period is the highest estimated since the eruption episodes began back in the end of 2023. So even these guys are agreeing right here that it's possible. If an eruption does occur, it could be comparable to or larger than the eruption back in 2024, which was the largest so far in terms of volume. Interesting. Most likely scenario going to be in the craters area once again. I'll kick this up just a little bit higher so you guys can see. Right now, no signs of any migration to the south there, but there's always a little bit of concern. Early in the game, we had a little fissure event open up there just in the northern part of Grindavik right there, right about here. And that burned a couple homes there on the northern side. It looks like that same area is included in the latest hazard map right here. Just a portion there of Grindavik, but they feel the most obvious area for some fissure events opening. Well, it's right there in the red zone that stretches back to the northeast here. Most likely scenario, but again, that includes a portion down there of the Grindavik area. We'll have to watch that. Right now, the main area, though, down here is in Zone 4 for Grindavik, with lava flow, gas pollution, sinkholes, and, of course, fault movements. Remember when that magma intrusion rolled underneath this area, creating some of the pipes and whatnot, the infrastructure underneath the ground to be damaged? That was pretty crazy. Luckily, nothing major happened there in terms of the eruption status, but there's still always that concern here, folks, with that type of movement. We'll have to watch that, though, and see if we don't get earthquake activity down there. Right now, it is confined there to the area of the southwest here. And similar to last events, I'll say it again, it was almost just a short time later following this activity, days, if not hours later, that we've seen activity get to the breaking point up here across the craters area, which is right around here. So we'll watch that. I know the Earthquake 3D globe isn't showing a lot, and that's just, let me see here. Yeah, 510 in the last 24 hours. Are some of these offline? Looks like maybe they may be offline. That one's online. There's the increasing activity there in the last, 24 hours or so. Been pretty quiet as far as earthquake activity goes, but look at that. Massive amounts of earthquake activity. Here's the drum chart. Of course, I don't know why it doesn't work with Google Chrome, but it doesn't. But you can see it here a little bit. All the earthquake ramping up. And it's not going to show up here on the Earthquake 3D globe. I just don't have it up there. This is from the EMSC and the USGS, so they're only showing that one 3-pointer in that cluster of 500, 511 earthquakes or so in the last 24 hours in this area. But these guys are counting up to about 600, so that's a considerable amount of earthquake activity, folks. We'll continue to watch that there across the Grindavik area. Iceland. All right. West Coast activity, some movement around the Bay Area once again outside of Concord. Been pretty active out here across this area recently, with swarms on the San Andreas Fault, swarms on the Hayward Fault, and a lot of activity over here across the Calaveras Fault now. Here's the last 30 days of earthquake activity. Here's that swarming there across the San Francisco region on the San Andreas Fault, swarming on the Hayward Fault here. Had a pretty good cluster of quakes earlier last month, roughly about the 13th, so about 30 days now, and I'm sure there was a few more earthquakes prior to that, but we're on the 30-day chart here. So swarms on that, swarms around the Calaveras Fault Zone, stretching all the way down south here to the interchange where it branches off the plate boundary. A lot going on out here across the Bay Area. Nothing big for now. I think the largest magnitude, that's down here across the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault, where another swarm event was taking place. So a lot of activity here recently. We'll continue to watch that as we're seeing some activity right now. Parkfield segment and the San Andreas Fault southern branch here, pretty quiet. Not a whole lot going on for now. In fact, it looks awfully quiet down there in Southern California. That's just a little bit below the background levels that we see here on any single day. For the rest of the west out here, Seattle area, expecting some further movement up here. There is one earthquake that popped here on a little 1.5 on the Seattle Fault. Little increasing movement out here across the entire region, even up outside of Victoria. That is probably in relation to the tremor activity that's kicked up. Not yesterday, but the day before. Most of the tremor down there in south underneath the Oregon area, but the day previous we had some Cascadia tremor up around the Seattle area. And as of late here, most of the tremor activity that does take place during the day seems to lead to elevated earthquake activity around the region. Now this is tremor activity, not volcanic tremor, but slow slip events there underneath the area associated directly with the Cascadia subduction zone, which begins offshore here. But underneath this area, you get the sliding of the two plates, and these little markings there are just tremor counts. And elevated activity has been noted out here for tremor, resulting in elevated earthquake activity out here in the last month or so. Show you guys the last month. A lot of activity up here. Well, I should say minimal. There hasn't been a lot, but anything that does take place in terms of tremor results in almost immediate earthquake activity, similar to what we've seen up here outside the Vancouver area. That's only, what do we got, like 4 or 5 counts there? But that area northwest of Vancouver is where the earthquake struck here, 4.8, back in towards the end of February. Almost that same exact area. So when tremor occurs, that's obviously a sign that the plates are slowly going past each other. Slowly. And of course, it seems as though it's resulting in earthquake activity out here. I'll pull up 2.5 map. This is a lot higher for a 2.5 map than normal out here. But a lot of tremor activity directly in this region around the Vancouver area, resulting in the... Where's my tremor map? Right here. Resulting in further earthquake activity just upstream or sometimes at the surface level. So that's a sign there of strain building up out here. Nothing big going on today, but it has been noted here. Tremor activity definitely seems to be kicking off earthquake activity. Even as minor as the tremor is, it's resulting in earthquakes. So nothing here across Oregon, though, following the tremor activity down here. And Northern California either. So it's hard to say if these guys are reporting the all the earthquakes there across the Petrolia area. This is a seismograph station there, run on the live stream. Haven't been watching it all morning, but I kind of find it hard to believe that there hasn't been even one earthquake out here in the last 24 hours. I just don't think that's legit. All right. Yellowstone, nothing going on there, but as always, let's go double check that. Make sure. Yeah, I don't see a whole lot popping up there on the seismograph stations. That's the last 24 hours of earthquake activity here. Maybe, well, one little spike over here, but that's pretty much irrelevant. Not a whole lot going on there across Yellowstone for now. Backing out here, a little bit of movement across Kansas area, northern Kansas, with a 3.2 near Glen Elder. Looks like a little swarm going on up there. Outside of the Wakanda Lake area, up in north of the Smoky Hills. Beautiful Kansas area. Hopefully one of these days here, kind of looking at some relocation ideas around this area of the country. I like it. And you know why I like it? Because people say there's nothing out there. That's great. 3.2. Let me check here for the satellite imagery. Yeah, whatever's happening is underneath this area about 3 miles or so. I don't know if there's any oil fields out here, or maybe some type of that's somebody's house or farm. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with this lake out here. I don't know if it's low out there or full, but a couple earthquakes stirring up underneath this area. That's only been in the last 24 hours all of a sudden. Down in Oklahoma, some oil fields. Texas oil fields getting hit. That's for sure. New Madrid seismic zone, pretty quiet. The eastern area of the country, quiet as well. Still getting some strain quakes out here across the Caribbean plate. That's pretty obvious here on the earthquake 3D globe map as well. Hold on a second here. Right here, quite a few 2s and 3s. Pretty good cluster of earthquakes here across the Puerto Rico area, mainly underneath this region. That's been an ongoing thing here for quite a few years. I've noticed this. It'll go through stages of increasing earthquake activity and times of quietness. That area sits on the Mariotos Trough, which is right here, which kind of pushes this land up Puerto Rico. So we see these swarms on occasion, but ultimately at the same time that puts strain up here across the Puerto Rico Trench, where we got some earthquake activity stirring up here, including that 5.9 late last month. So it's a lot of activity out here, not to mention the 7.6 earthquake that struck out here, the biggest earthquake. That's been over 30 days now. I can't believe that. The biggest earthquake so far this year, that 7.6. So quite active if you look at the long-term models here. A lot of Middle America Trench activity, putting the strain here on this little Caribbean plate. And that's when things can really, kick up in terms of earthquake activity. And it's showing. I mean, at 5.9 up here across the Dominican Republic, I still think there's a higher likelihood of seeing something larger out here during these extended elevated events. Checking out the rest of the globe here, the largest earthquake in the last 24 hours, 5.2 out in Taiwan. That was yesterday, but after midnight here, a 5-pointer down south here across the Molucca Sea region, or Banda Sea, Molucca Sea up here. So today a little bit quieter in terms of larger scale movement, but it never fails. As soon as I end the update video, big earthquake comes in. It just always plays out like that. So we'll check back on this towards the end of this update video. Let me check the earthquake 3D globe here. New Zealand's pretty quiet down here today. Still lacking activity in this zone. Papua New Guinea area eastward to about Fiji. Really haven't had much earthquake activity out here. Let me double check that. Last 7 days. Yeah, pretty absent of earthquake movement out here. Had a couple earthquakes, 4.6 and a 4.8, but that's awfully quiet here for the last 7 days. So watch that region. That may fill in pretty fairly nicely here soon. Trail of quakes here across the Java Trench as on any given day. It's just a very active area. Santorini, Greece region. Looks like a handful of earthquakes out there, but I do want to double check. Excuse me. $384. So the counts are going down. This is the last 7 days. Looks like that station has gone offline here. The station I normally use is 4D. I guess we can use this one up here, R6CF4. Still showing some earthquake activity there. Not as much earthquake activity as obviously in weeks past. Let's check out the recorded view here from the geophysics site real quick. Santorini, Greece area. Of course, this is scared quite a few folks out here. Had scientists out here wondering what's going on. You know, is this thing getting ready to blow? Well, no eruption yet. Still seeing a lot of earthquake activity. The counts are going down. You know, 300 and something there in the last week compared to a couple thousand each day, like we've seen here in the last several weeks. So just kind of keeping an eye on it. I don't really know what this is leading to. It may just completely die off, but it's a swarm unprecedented for sure. You know, probably 18,000 earthquakes. I'll have to figure out a count here, see if I can get my hands on some data. But that's got to be the numbers. Atlantic Ocean pretty quiet aside from the movement up north. 4.8 down here. That in itself there, let's see what we got in the last 7 days. Yeah, we got 2 earthquakes down here. I'd watch this area right here across the South Sandwich Trench. That movement here normally will trigger some subduction zone quakes here, and that's this area right here, the South Sandwich Trench. All right, let's go check space weather activity. We'll give a double check here on the earthquakes at the end of this video. Space weather jumping up here a little bit. Notice in the last 48 hours or so, a little crackling, a little popping, sizzling going on here on the graph instead of a flat line, right? This tells me that things are unstable with a sunspot or two out there. Nothing big, bunch of sea flare activity, but you know, there's probably a good 20 sea flares here in the last couple days. More than likely, the culprit is going to be this area back here, but let's take a look at the magnetogram image and see what it looks like today. Yeah, this one's a little complex down there. It's got a interesting structure. It's about the only one that I see that's of any significance. This area has grown a little bit. Same with this one. So we got a couple active areas out here, but the main one I think is going to be back here across the visible disk now. This is that sunspot that was out here on the far side there just a day or so ago. Now within view, and since it's been in view, we've been sizzling a little bit with some sea flare activity, and it's notable. You can see it quite nicely here on the UV image of the sun. So watch that one. That may enhance the flaring activity here. I bumped mine up to about 50% chance for an M flare. X flare, these guys have 5%. I don't know if that's going to produce any X flare activity or not, but we'll definitely watch it. No major roars there in the forecast for now. Just, it looks like we had a little elevated activity last night, kicking up around the G1 class storm. That was due to some high-speed solar wind stream that was facing the Earth from just a general speed or general high-speed solar wind stream from the sun. Real quick glance here at the asteroid approaches, see if there's anything major headed this way as far as the next 5 go. Pretty quiet. When I see these numbers up there around millions of miles away, yeah, that is a considerable safe distance there, let me tell you. All right, tomorrow, ooh man, today not so much, but tomorrow, goodness, that's when our start of our severe weather with tornado activity possible there. Today, just some thunderstorm activity, but let's take a look here at day 2. Okay, this is a serious event. If I didn't have a whole bunch of stuff going on, I may go out there and observe some of this activity. But look at that huge area of some tornado potential tomorrow, a hatched area. This is where the ingredients, and that covers multiple states out there. This is the area that the weather folks here feel that the ingredients are highest for tornadoes up to an EF5. Some of these may be long-tracked EF5 tornadoes as well. So we got, in this probability here, the hatched area is a 10% or greater probability of an EF2 up to an EF5 tornado within about 25 miles of a point. Oh, man. You guys got to make sure you have your weather radio on here tomorrow. Keep the news on. Maybe just... not everyone looks at the radar 24/7 like I do and some other storm chasers do, but you got to pay attention tomorrow with these thunderstorms that are popping up. The environment out here is quite ripe for tornado activity, and that extends 2% there in the green, 5% in the kind of the dark brown color, light red. I don't even know how to explain this color. But you guys see it there on the map. We also got some high, big-time threats here for some wind. Straight-line winds, inflow winds, you name it. Got a huge hatched area, 45% chance for some significant damaging winds out there. St. Louis, Missouri, Springfield. Man, Decatur, Illinois. That's a lot of population density out there. And the significant, severe 24 million people. Hail, even some hail threats out there. This is all severe weather possibilities here for tomorrow. Look at that. Big time weather day. I'm sure you can see Reed Timmer out there, chasing some of these storms in the Dominator and quite a few hundreds of other storm chasers following him. But not a day to be weather complacent. That's a big deal. That's for tomorrow. For the day. Let's see what the time frame is on this. Expected by early to mid-afternoon. This should continue into the night, too, before it turns into a QLCS line. Pretty much like a squall line. So, man, just be careful tomorrow. This is on the day on Saturday. That weather shifts further to the east and southeast. Probably the same type of threat for tornado and hail and wind damage out there. So we'll check back on that tomorrow. But, man, it's definitely one of those days here where you don't want to see damage and stuff like that. But you got to just make sure you're prepared tomorrow. If you have the TV on, make sure you at least have it on a local station. That way you can get some severe weather alerts. Phones too, right? I know my phone's set up here to send out when there's a tornado warning or some type of special weather statement. A lot of people asking me what's the best weather app to use, and this ain't a advertisement for them. I just like to use them. Is RadarScope, and it's worth using the paid version. I think I pay. I pay for the pro version, so I pay $9.99 a month. But it's worth it. You can see what's coming at you. You can see, which direction the storms are headed. Like on this area down here outside of Montgomery, Columbus area, Fort Moore. You can kind of click on these and see that it's headed towards the east at 19 knots. Potential hail size 1 inch. And if you're down here by this area, and that track line is pretty close to your town, that gives you a little time there to prepare. Maybe get the vehicle underneath an awning or something. Of course, if this was a tornado headed this way, you'd want to be there in your safe spot. But I absolutely love RadarScope here. I find it the best there is when it comes to rapid, updated information and all the activity you get to look at. You can look at the rotation of the storm, see if there's any velocity in terms of spinning with it. But that's what I use. So tomorrow and Saturday, be on guard there, folks. And that's associated with the low pressure system that just brought quite a bit of rain and snow out here across California. There's that low pressure spinning up. Doesn't look like much, but once it taps into the high dew points and all this moisture funneling in from the Gulf, well, that's a typical springtime severe weather threat out here. And again, that's going to shoot further to the east on Saturday and Sunday. As you can see, it moves on. And then another low pressure behind that here for California. Not for sure if that's going to do as much severe weather-wise, but let's see what happens with that. Anyway, it's active. Lots of activity stirring up out here. You got all that colder air there from Canada. Low pressures coming off the Pacific into California, and it's a typical setup here for this time of year, so just be prepared, folks. Shake Alert system is currently offline for emergency maintenance. All other earthquake monitoring by the USGS and its partners is active and uninterrupted. All right. Looks like the Shake Alert is down for now. One earthquake, new one here outside of Mount Shasta. That's well to the east. But nothing major going on here now. For now. But Iceland, I really think Iceland there will probably kick up here real soon in terms of that volcanic activity there. Got to keep an eye on that. We're coming up on we're past the time where we should have seen another eruption there across the area of the Svartsengi. All right, folks, I'm out of here. Got quite a bit of schoolwork I got to do, catch up on. Thinking about doing the member drawing here, folks, tomorrow. And I say that because I have a super busy day on the 15th, 16th, and the 17th. Got a few days after that I'm not going to be able to get the member drawing in. So what we're going to do is do the member drawing tomorrow, the 14th. It's something I do around the middle of each month. I try to do it on the 15th, but there's days that come up here where I have to, adjust my schedule for that. But I think it'd be good that we get it done tomorrow sometime, so that's what we'll do. Didn't notice this activity way up north here. That's been an ongoing deal here for a little while. A lot more active out here across this area of the world than normal. But we'll continue to watch it. I'll see you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening. And don't forget, member drawing coming up tomorrow. It's just something we've been doing here for a couple of years. We give away cash prizes, Earthmaster merchandise, and or geology mining kits. So it's completely up to you. If you are the chosen winner, randomly picked out from a fishbowl, of course, live on the channel. So we'll do that tomorrow. Have a good one, folks. We'll catch you guys out here a little bit later on this evening.